Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Disclaimer. This is not an investment nor purchase of any financial instrument. This presentation is merely part of the estate planning and wealth distribution in the form of cash placement into a trust known as cash trust. Cash trust is backed by legal bound documents called trust deed, which is regulated by the federal law of Malaysia. Now, today I would like to share with you a talk on wealth preservation and wealth distribution. Okay, please sit back and relax and see my presentation. My name is Lenny Chong, and here is a brief description about myself, so you can see for yourself. Now, today's presentation is for DDG International Berhad in partnership with Asia International Trust Berhad, which is a well-established trustee in the region, with the aim of providing trust knowledge and services to the general public. So as you can see from the below logo here, you can see that DDG International Berhad is in partnership with Asia International Trust Berhad, as well as Awaris Amanah, which is Amanah Warisan Berhad. Both are trustee companies. Now, what is DDG International Berhad? What do we do? So DDG International Berhad has a headquarters in Butterworth, Penang, and was established on the 5th of July 2021. So what do? We are dealing with estate and trust planning, succession planning, consulting services, as well as growth enterprises together with other partnership for companies expansion. Now let's take a look at the wealth management. The basic wealth management, there are three main pillars. First of all is accumulation. Wealth accumulation, we call it. So during the wealth accumulation stage, we save money, we invest, we venture into business to build our wealth or create our wealth. After that, the next stage is we protect the wealth that we have created, right, by putting our assets or money into the trust, insurance, or other protection areas. Well, we also know that at the end of the time, we are not able to bring all our wealth together with us to the other world. So therefore, the final stage will be wealth distribution. So what is wealth distribution? So wealth distribution is how we are going to distribute the wealth that we have accumulated and protected. Well, via trust or will and estate planning or other retirement planning. Now, the origin of trust services. The trust existed in 12th century in the United Kingdom. And trust existed in Malaysia since 1921, which is already 103 years old. And the top pillars of modern financial industries in developed countries are trust, banks, securities, as well as insurance. Trust is not uncommon and widely known in most developed countries due to its high level of confidentiality as an asset preservation tool. So as a result, many high net worth individuals prefers trust over other asset preservation tools. I shall give you some references along with the other slides. Overview of trust in Malaysia. As mentioned, Amanah Raya is Malaysia's premier trustee company wholly owned by the government of Malaysia. Established in 1921 as the Department of Public Trustee and officially administrator, the company was incorporated in 1995. Association of Trust Company Malaysia, or ATCM. This was formed also in 1995 under the Societies Act 1966. So each member of the ATCM is registered as a trust company under the Trust Company Act 1949 and are regulated by the Companies Commission of Malaysia, or CCM, or better known as SSM. To date, there are 30 trust companies in the association. Now, everyone knows this gentleman. Who is he? Bill Gates. What did he say? He once said that money in trust is not about returns. It's about protection against unwarranted claims and efficient distribution of your assets without probate. I shall explain more about probate in the later slides. Now, trust can be used as a wealth preservation and distribution tool, as I mentioned earlier in the under the wealth management. Okay, so benefit of a living trust. The main advantage of establishing a trust fund is having greater control over the beneficiaries' access to the trust assets. So first of all, is to avoid grant of probate, GP, right? Just now we mentioned about probate. So what is probate? Probate is a court process after the person demise in order to transfer the assets into the name of the beneficiaries. Secondly, to protect privacy. So trust can protect privacy because it avoids the court probate. And thirdly, maintain control of your assets after you pass on, right? According to your wishes. It reduces the possibilities of court challenges since it does not do not have to appear in the court. It prevents conservatorship or appointment of guardian. Protects wealth against settlor creditors under the Section 52 of the Insolvency Act 1967, as well as protect the wealth against beneficiaries' creditors. We shall look more into this in later slides. Now, when a person passes away, all the cash in bank will be frozen. I'm sure most of you knows about that. And all other assets will also be frozen as well, right? Assets, property, cars, houses, land, and as well. Now, frozen assets will not be transferred to your beneficiaries automatically, even if you have a will. What is the solution? Let's take a look at this. Now, when a person passes away, the assets frozen, all the assets will be frozen. Now, there are two ways to go about it. One is with a will and one is without a will. Let's look at it. So with a will, of course, you have to, on the left-hand side of the slides, you have to pay the lawyer fee or legal fee between 6,000 to 8,000, right? And it takes about 6 months to 2 years, depending on how much assets you have to apply for the grant of probate. After that, then you have to collect the assets, advertise to make known in the Gazette to creditors to claim debts from the deceased estate. Pay all the debt first to all your creditors before distribute the assets to the beneficiary according to the will, if you have a will, right? If you without a will, you have to spend more time and money, right? To appoint an administrator, you need to value the asset and to find two surety, which is also a guarantor, which have equivalent amount of the assets of the deceased. Then you apply for the letter of administration, which will take longer time, of course, before you collect the assets, advertise to protect the creditors to claim the debt from the deceased estate, pay all the debts, and then before you distribute assets to the beneficiary, and because you do not have a will, the distribution will be according to the Distribution Act. Okay, and all this, the priority goes to the creditor first. Now, after settling the debts with the creditors, the remaining only will go to the beneficiary. Okay, so this is with and without will. Now, on top of that, there will be costs involved. As for tax debt during the lifetime, if the deceased owes income tax or whatever tax, they have to settle first. They have to pay the creditors. On top of that, the beneficiary have to pay the transfer fee of the property, lawyer fee, accounting fee, and execution fee as well. Now, of course, we got another choice, right? So if the same assets is put into a trust, for example, right? So when the deceased passes on, right, the person passes on, it will go directly to the beneficiary by passing the grant of probate. Therefore, they does not have to go through the court process. So thus, it's time saving, creditor proof, and without any dispute. Priority goes to the beneficiary directly, right, from the trustee. Now, what happens if someone dies without a will in Malaysia? Where does the money go? Okay, let's take a look. So if you do not have a will or trust, as I mentioned just now, you can see from the chart. So a estate will go to the beneficiaries based on the Distribution Act 1958. which was amended in 1997. So before it was amended, this is how it looks like. The Distribution Act 1958, right? So it goes to the spouse only, spouse and parents. Issue means children. So if your person is not married, of course, you do not have spouse, and you also do not have children. And your parents might be old or they are passed on. Then who else will be receiving the distribution from the estate, right? So that was the question. That's why it was amended later in 1997. And let's look at the next slide. This is only for non-Muslim. So the amendment in 1997 is for those who did not get married. That means, or also do not have parents as well. Parents are too old and already passed on. So when you do not have parents, do not have spouse or issue. So under this amendment in 1997, it says that you can go to the brothers and sisters in equal shares, grandparents in equal share, uncle and aunts in equal share, great-grandparent in equal share, great uncles and aunts in equal share. Otherwise, it will go to the government if none of the above. So it's all these are in descending order of priority. Now, however, there are three financial tools won't be frozen given the nomination has been done. Okay, provided you have a nominee. Who are these? These are the trust, KWSP or EPF, as you have known, and also the insurance. So let's take a look. Trust. When a trust is set up, the trustee company will transfer directly the asset to the beneficiaries. So the process will take between 7 to 10 working days. So for EPF, members can nominate nominee by submitting the KWSP form at EPF office. You need to check, update your nominee as time and the time. It will normally takes 1 to 2 months for the money to be dispersed to nominees. And finally, insurance money falls outside of the estate. So the payout is creditor proof. Beneficiary will receive the payout within 2 to 4 weeks. Living cash trust. What is living cash trust? It's a trust established by you where you place a sum of cash in a trust that can be made available to your named beneficiaries in the event of emergency. Trusts are created specifically to hold assets for the benefit of beneficiary or beneficiaries. Now, what's the difference between cash trust and fixed deposit account? Right? Malaysians like to save money, and as you can see here, there are two examples here. Let's use an example of one Mr. Tan who has 500,000 in FD account and another 500,000 in cash trust. So in the event of his death, the amount in his FDs or fixed deposits in the bank will be frozen, and his beneficiaries require his will to unlock the account. It could take up to 12 months to expedite the document and have the amount in the bank distributed, assuming the will is not contested. Okay. Now, on the other hand, the sum in the cash trust, on the other hand, is not frozen. His trustee will continue to manage the sum based on Mr. Tan's trust deed. And he could, for example, have instructed the trustee to distribute the money to all his beneficiaries immediately upon his death. This could be a much speedier process. Now, as you can see, Malaysian individual fixed deposits as of 31st of March 2021, this is the statistic, shows that there's over 1 billion FDs are in cash, right? So in all the 18 banks in Malaysia. Okay, so let's imagine how much money and savings Malaysians do have. Now, setting up a cash trust is easy. The person who set up a cash trust is known as a settlor. So he placed the assets with the trustee. So the trustee company, for example, here is AITB, Asia International Trust Berhad, or Alwaris or Amanah Warisan Berhad. And they will hold and manage the trust assets for the settlor, right? They hold it for the settlor, but upon the demise of the settlor, it will pass it to the beneficiary. The beneficiary will enjoy the benefit of the trust. And all this is bounded by the trust deed. And what is a trust deed? A trust deed is a written legal instruction, just like when you purchase a house, you have a SMP agreement. Okay? Now let's look at the Association of Trust Companies Malaysia, or ATCM. Now this is a new office bearer from 2022 to 2024. So this association is managed by the office bearer, and all these office bearers are from trust background, from the trustee companies that they're representing, and from all other trustee companies. For example, the chairman is representing the Deutsche Trustee Malaysia. Treasurer is representing CIMB Commerce Trustee. Secretary is from RHB Trustee Berhad, and then other committee members from Maybank Trustees, HSBC, Rockwills, My Trustee, and so on and so forth. Right? So they are professional and they are the expert in this field. So therefore, those members who join the association will be must follow very stringent according to the Act, the Trust Company Act and Trustee Act 1914. So as you can see, if you go to the website, ATCM website, you can see that Avaris and Asia International Trust Berhad both are members of the Association of Trust Company in Malaysia. Okay, so as you can see again here, the total number of members of the association are 30 out of, I think, about 44 or 45 of them right now. But not all of them will join as member of the association for whatever reason. Okay, so as you can see from here, Amanah Warisan Berhad and Asia International Trust Berhad are members of the ATCM, Association of Trust Company in Malaysia. Why is trust important? Okay, ask yourself, why is trust important? To avoid unclaimed estate, right? As you can see from papers, in 2007, there are 40 billion unclaimed cash and asset left by the dead. And in 2017, 60 billion, it went up to 60 billion. And by 2019, it went up again to 70 billion. Right? It keep going up higher and higher. Why? Because a lot of people doesn't write will or set up a trust. So the money goes where? Will go to the unclaimed assets or estate. Now, in the report again in the 2021, it says that some 90 billion worth of assets mostly owned by Malays unclaimed as of 2020. Okay. Right, as you can see from the paper. So as of October 31st, 2019, total unclaimed monies. Monies means cash. Cash alone is amounted to 7 billion. Unclaimed, these are all unclaimed because they did not set up write a will or set up a trust. So therefore, the beneficiaries or the children doesn't know where the money, the parents' money or uncle's money went to. Now, it ballooned to 8.8 billion in end of 2019, right? And all this keep going up and going up. Why? Because nobody come forward to claim. So as you can see, and it ballooned to 11 billion unclaimed as of October 2022. As you can see from here, right? It's unclaimed 11 billion cash. This is cash, cash alone. Okay. Next, we talk about joint account. Many people think that, oh, I have a joint account. It doesn't matter when the other half passes on. I can just withdraw the other the account, no problem. But it is strong. If you look at the newspaper, you have stated that freeze on joint account burden living partner. Right? So this has come out. Why? So, let me show you. Right? Many of our local banks do not practice joint tenancy account. It's just a joint account. Joint account doesn't mean joint tenancy account. That's the difference. So what's the difference? What is joint tenancy account? Joint tenancy ensures that in the event one owner dies, the ownership of the property passes automatically to the other owner. Though this is also called the right of survivorship. This process also avoids probate and inheritance tax issues. Joint tenants are owned or joint tenants all own the property together rather than owning individual shares. So if you have a joint, normal joint account, it will just be probably 50% of the account. The other half have to go through the probate process as well. It will be frozen as well. Okay, so please be very careful. If you have a joint account, go to your bank and ask them whether it is a joint tenancy account. Okay, thank you. Now, there's also an article who came out recently from the Star in 2022. It says that joint tenancy account refers to a bank account that is held and owned equally by two or more individuals. In many situations, this type of account was held by a husband and wife jointly. Business partner may also hold bank accounts in joint tenancy. Usually, either party has the right to withdraw the full amount of the account at any time. And this depends on the way the account agreement is written. Joint tenancy account also have a right of survivorship. So the full amount of the account goes to the surviving spouse or partner when one spouse or partner dies. So remember the word joint tenancy account, not just normal joint account. Okay. Now, do you have unclaimed monies? Every one of us will sure to have some unclaimed money somewhere during our lifetime. Okay, so you can actually check online by registering with this website egumis.anm.gov.my, and you can register. After you register, you can log in to this egumis.anm.gov.my, and then with the IC number, you should be able to check how much money you have left over unclaimed. Okay, so this is my check 2 IC 101 new, and the total was only 318 ringgit. I claim it through the eGumis online website. So do check your website and see whether you have any unclaimed monies. Now the good news is that as of June 2023, it was announced that 3.4 billion in unclaimed monies reclaimed as of end May. The finance minister was happy that at least 3.4 billion from the unclaimed monies have been reclaimed by many people. So please go to the website and check whether you have any unclaimed monies. Now, example of distribution from a trust fund. There are three scenarios here I would like to show you. The first scenario, if you set up a family trust, you can put the money to the trustee company that ask the trustee to invest in certain areas, and then from the investment portfolio, you get the return and you will distribute to the personal expenses to your beneficiary even during your lifetime. The second scenario, let's say the client himself was disabled, right? Then you can pay, the trustee will pay out to the client himself or the settlor for medical expenses, right? Due to what do you call that, disablement, or physically or mentally. Okay, and under the AI generation trust, of course, they stated here under the clause number 5 that disbursement of the trust capital, the trustee shall disperse the projected dividend, if any, to the settlor during his lifetime, and thereafter upon the settlor death or mental or physical incapacity, whether fully or partly. Now, physical incapacity means like a stroke, or sometimes you have this Parkinson disease and so on. So you need the medication. So the trustee will release the money for the medication as well. And how about the another one is the mental incapacity. Mental incapacity is like coma. You have in what do you call that? Forgetfulness. What do you call that? Lost your memory or whatever, and then you need medication. You need people to look after. So you can the trustee will disperse the trust capital for the client's medical expenses. And finally, of course, the third scenario is when the client passes away. When the client passes away, of course, you will pay directly to the client's family or the beneficiary according to the trust deed, right? or some may be donated to the charity chosen by the client. Now, how are we protected? Just a quick one. So if you look at this under the Ministry of Finance, we have the Bank Negara, we have the EPF, we have the Security Commission, and all this and all not. So if you look at this under the Bank Negara take care of the bank and the insurance, and of course under the law, we have the Central Bank of Malaysia Act, Financial Services Act, PDPA, Companies Act, and AMLA. AMLA is the latest and the most important act which will prevent money laundering. So how about trust? It's not seen anywhere here, but trust companies have to be approved by the Ministry of Finance. Okay, but of course it's registered under SSM, the company under Companies Act, and so on and so forth. And besides the Companies Act, it also have the Trustee Act 1949 and also the Trust Company Act 1949. So these are the two acts responsible for the trust company. Okay, and of course, if there's any monies involved, and it will still fall under the Bank Negara Malaysia, the central bank. Then of course it will go back to the laws, PDPA, Companies Act, Anti-Money Laundering Act, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it's well protected in this line. Okay, here I would like to show you one of the
A trust company is approved by the Ministry of Finance. It must adhere strictly to trust and corporate laws. Over the past century, no trust company in Malaysia has gone bankrupt. As per Section 16 of the Trust Companies Act, the settler's assets shall always be kept separate from those of the company. The settler's assets do not belong to the trust company. In other words, the settler's assets are secure.
Okay, at least here you see, right, how secure are those assets kept in the trustee company. And it's also mentioned that until now, 103 years, there's no trust company in Malaysia has gone bankrupt. Okay, so here is that under Section 16 of the Trust Company Act 1949, all money and property and security received or held by any of the trust company in a fiduciary capacity shall always be kept distinct from those in the company and in separate account. So it is not mixed with the company's account. Okay, so as you mentioned in the video as well. So application by company to be registered as a trust company, of course, they need to follow under Section 3 of the Trust Company Act 1949, right? Which you need to have certain authorized capital, pay up capital. Then you have to follow the objects under Section 8 of the Trust Company Act 1949 before it can be appointed as under Section 12 of the Trust Company Act 1949 as a trustee company. And then the SSM will only issue the certificate under Section 4 of the Trust Company Act 1949 after it had been approved by the Ministry of Finance. Right? It's not easy to get to be a trustee company. Okay, so this will get the trustee company another certificate from the SSM. Okay, of course, it is also the investigation by inspector. So under the Ministry of Finance, they can at any time appoint an inspector and investigate the affair of the account, especially the books, all books and account and voucher, etc., at any point of time, right? And the inspector will report back the investigation to the Minister of Finance. Okay, as you can see from here. And of course, penalties liable for trust company. Obligation of trust company is to submit annual statement every year, right? They have to submit a list of all the members, those clients who have submitted, how much they are keeping with them. So have to make a report to the company, to the SSM, right? To the registered company of registrar. Failing to do so, any director, officers, and servants of trust companies liable for penalty listed under Section 27 to Section 30 of the Trust Company Act 1949. Okay, so what are the penalty? This is not just fine himself. Just look at it. Under Section 27, willful neglect to make entry. I highlighted it in red, imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. So no joke, it's not only fine, it's imprisonment, right? Any director, officer, and servant of the trust company. And under Section 28, if you make a false statement in the account, trying to manipulate, also imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. Then, of course, refuse to produce a book. If you have one, it will not exceed 500, you'll be fined, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 12 months, or both. And finally, you can have a fine of 50 ringgit each day during which the default continues if they neglect to forward the annual statement. So as is stated here, the obligation is to submit annual statement. Every year must submit. So if you forgot or neglect, you don't want to submit, then the act will come in under the Company Act of 2016 that you will be fined not exceeding 50 ringgit each day, each day. Okay, so it's quite heavy penalty. The trust company may invest trust money in its hand or upon any security in which private trustees may by law invest trust money. So trust company are allowed to invest, right? But upon any securities, any type of securities, of course it's legal, all these are under the government's approval. It also mentioned that the kind of security or property upon any investment shall be made, right? It's given that the judgment, degree, or will, or in any instrument creating the trust as to the particular class or kind of security. Security here means the collateral, okay? So no trust company shall directly or indirectly invest any trust money otherwise than in accordance with subsection 1, okay, above, as mentioned above. Inheritance tax in Malaysia. So during the budget 2020, it was mentioned that it's time for wealth and inheritance tax. So inheritance tax is actually we also known as a death tax. When the person die, when you pass on your inheritance, your property to the beneficiary, it will be taxed. Okay, but it was imposed in Malaysia under Estate Duty Enactment 1941, but it was repealed or revoked in 1991, November the 1st, 1991. Unless if it's coming back again, then you have to pay tax. But until now, there's still no inheritance tax in Malaysia for the time being. Okay. Now, even though we have the inheritance tax, but it was only maximum was only 10%, exceeding 4 million. If your inheritance tax is exceeding 4 million. Now, if you look at this chart here, top 10 estate or inheritance tax rates among the OECD country. The highest in the world is Japan, 55% inheritance tax, followed by South Korea, France, United Kingdom, and so on and so on. That's why trust is very popular in overseas because of the high inheritance taxes. Now let's take a look at the Samsung family prepared to pay 10 billion inheritance taxes on the late Lee Kun-hee wealth. Right, the late chairman of Samsung, for example, is 50%, right? The inheritance tax was 50% in South Korea. You have to pay 10 billion if the inheritance is 20 billion. So they have to raise 10 billion to pay the tax before they can claim the other 10 billion, right? And it came out in paper that even the late chairman's widow has signed an agreement to sell certain percentage of the stake of Samsung Electronics to a bank, right, in order to raise money. And they will take about 5 years to raise enough money to claim the inheritance of the late Lee Kun-hee. Okay, so see how much of tax have to pay to the government. Now, which would you prefer for your family? After looking at the comparison and looking at all these unclaimed monies as well as estate and so on, right? Which would you prefer for your family? With a will, you need to apply, you need to engage a lawyer, right? 1 to 2 year delay in distribution, public disclosure of your asset, because you go to court, everyone will know about your assets. Maximum emotional impact on family, right? Court appointed guardians, expensive probate fees, maximum estate taxes, easily contested. If someone come here and say that, oh, she still owe me money and proof and so on and so forth, right? Public and court control. Whereas if you have a living cash trust, no attorney, no court control, no probate, no guardian, no conservator, no hassle, no delay, no unnecessary expenses, no unnecessary taxes, no contest clause, reduced taxes, and totally private and family control. Okay, so which one would you prefer for your family? Now, if you look at the comparison again for the last will and trust, right? Having a will, I just highlight these two important ones. When to distribute? If you have a last will, the testator have to pass away. Even if it's coma, you cannot distribute your asset yet. Okay. Whereas in the trust, when triggering event happen, triggering event means either physical or mental disability, right? The trustee will disperse the amount for the medication. Method of distribution, if you have a will, apply to the High Court for grant of probate, which will take time and you have to wait for the court and so on and so forth. Whereas if you have a trust, the method of distribution directly distribute to the beneficiary or beneficiaries according to the terms and conditions of the trust deed, right? So that's the difference. So another way to look at it is if you have the person who writes a will is called a testator, right? During a lifetime, what he owns become his assets. Upon his death, it become estate. And from the estate to convert back to the beneficiaries as assets, so you need to go through the probate process. And the probate process requires a lawyer to apply for grant of probate, executor to gather the assets, pay off all liabilities and tax as we have seen earlier, and then only we distribute the balance to the beneficiaries. Whereas if you have set up a trust, person who set up a trust is known as a settlor. During the lifetime is your assets. Upon your death, it's still asset because you already passed the asset over to the trustee. So the trustee hold the asset for you, and upon your demise, it will pass it on directly to the beneficiary without going through the probate process. Now, what if client did not die but comatose, brain dead, or bedridden, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, disbursement of the trust capital, this is the advantage, right, of using a trust. So it will directly disperse from the settlor, from the, the trustee to the beneficiary upon the mental or physical incapacity, right? Even if you are not dead, but you are brain dead or coma or in coma. Whereas compared to will, you have to be passed on before you can execute the will. Now, this on one of the Money Matter on Friday, it came out in the TV, and TV8 talks about trust. Yeah, but of course, this one is in Mandarin. This one was in Mandarin. Some of you might have seen the program, and it talking about this trust, the advantages of trust, okay, to give more awareness to the public, general public. Here's another video.
Recently, there have been frequent reports of the passing of certain celebrities, yet their families continue to maintain their financial stability and remain free of dispute. How do they manage to do that? In fact, they all set up private trusts during their lifetimes. Do you know what a private trust is? Let me explain using a simple story. Meet Ah Chai and Ah Fu. Ah Chai set up a private trust with DDG International before his passing, while Ah Fu did not. Both of them unfortunately passed away 1 year later. The two families faced different situations. Ah Chai's family was able to quickly access the inheritance he left behind within 7 to 10 days, thanks to the private trust he had set up with DDG. Ah Chai's wishes also allowed him to continue providing for his family's expenses as per his instructions. In contrast, all of Ah Fu's inheritance was frozen. His family had to deal with complex legal proceedings and expenses. They couldn't successfully access Ah Fu's inheritance due to the inability to find two guarantors with the same asset value. This also led to unnecessary family disputes. Ah Chai made a wise choice during his lifetime, allowing DDG to help fulfill his legacy and avoiding many unnecessary complications. One of the primary purposes of a private trust is to carry out the wishes of the settler, such as transferring assets to specific beneficiaries after the settler's passing. Trusts can also be used for estate planning, asset protection, and achieving charitable purposes, among other uses. If you'd like to learn more about private trusts, please feel free to contact our professional advisors at any time.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, now let's go to our product. Okay, all our products are structured products. Okay, first let's go at the AI Generation Trust. Okay, what are the benefits? So the trustee for AI Generation Trust is Asia International Trust Berhad, AITB. That is also a member of the ATCM. Okay, minimum subscribe amount is 30,000 plus multiple of 10,000. You cannot put 35,000. You have to go to 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, and so on and so forth. No setup fee and annual maintenance fee. You don't have to pay any upfront money to set up or any maintenance annual fee. Trust tenure is fixed 2-year term, auto-renewable. It can be renewed after 2 years, or at the end of the 2-year term, you can also withdraw, cancel revoke the trust. The objective is for wealth protection and wealth distribution, as I mentioned earlier. Revocable private trust with high privacy, but the first 6 months is lock-in period. Only first 6 months you cannot cancel. After the 6 months you can cancel, but subject to a penalty. Trust asset protected by trust deed and trust compliant with the Trustee Act 1949. Subscribed sum is safeguarded, right? Meaning that the trust fund to be kept separate, as you may have seen the video earlier, under Section 16 of the Trust Company Act 1949. Distribution of capital, 8.5% per annum, tax-free from authorized investment under Section 4, subsection 1 of the Trustee Act 1949. Beneficiary to receive payout within 7 to 10 working days upon demise of the settlor. So these are the features of the product, benefits and features. Direct distribution to beneficiary without need to probate or letter of administration. So it bypasses the probate and bypasses the court. So next product is the AI Amanah Generation Trust, also under AI Asia International Trust Berhad, but it's AITB Islamic. So this is for the Muslim. Of course, non-Muslim also can. Okay. So the product name is AITB Islamic or Asia International Trust Berhad, trustee. Minimum subscription same, 30,000, multiple of 10,000, no setup fee, no maintenance fee, renewable every 2 years, also a 2-year term. Trust asset protected by trust deed and trust compliant with Trustee Act 1949. It's a Sharia compliant asset protection and reservation, asset-backed investment. Distribution of capital projected is 7% per annum. Objective also for protection and wealth distribution. Beneficiary to receive payout within 7 to 10 working days upon demise or total permanent disability or mental or physical incapacity of settlor. As mentioned, direct distribution to beneficiary without need for probate or letter of administration. Same. Okay. Then we have another product called the Sharia Generation Trust or SGT. This is benefits is the trustee is Amanah Warisan Berhad. It's an Islamic trustee company known as Avaris for short. And a minimum subscription also 30,000 with multiple of 10,000. No setup fee. Trust tenure is renewable every 2 years. Trust asset also protected by trust deed and trust compliant with Trustee Act 1949. Sharia compliant asset protection and reservation. Capital also protected by preference share. Projected dividend is between 8% to 10% per annum, higher than the AI Islamic Trust. Portfolio, the investment is in internet technology and fintech, agriculture, manufacturing, food and beverages, financial technology, and others. Objective, again, is for wealth protection and wealth distribution. Lock-in period 6 months from the date of acceptance, same thing. Beneficiary to receive payout within 14 days upon demise, total permanent disability, mental or physical incapacity of said law. And direct distribution to beneficiary without need for probate and letter of administration. Okay. And one more product here is called the Generation Trust International, or GTI for short. It's an offshore trust. This is offshore trust. The earlier one we talked about is all in Malaysia. And outside Malaysia, we call it the offshore trust. So the trustee is called Green Pro Trust Limited. Minimum subscribed sum is 10,000 USD, multiple of 10,000 USD, or in Ringgit Malaysia is 50,000 Ringgit, a multiple of 25,000 Ringgit. Trust tenure is 2 years also, renewable. Objective for wealth protection and wealth distribution as well. Irrevocable private trust with high privacy. Trust assets are protected and safeguarded under the Trustee Ordinance, which is governed by Chapter 29 of Laws of Hong Kong. So this trust is in Hong Kong. So that's why it's an offshore trust outside Malaysia. Forecasted gross yield or return of 11% per annum, and a net yield of 9% annually. Why? Because after deducting the 1% for annual trustee fee and 1% for the annual management fee, from the 11%, it becomes 9% annually. So the dividend is 9% annually. Lock-in period 2 years from the date of acceptance. Beneficiary to receive payout within 14 days, working days upon demise, total permanent disability, mental or physical incapacity of said law. Direct distribution to beneficiary without need for probate or letter of administration is the same, right? Again, since you have seen so much of the dividend, 9% and so on, so I would like to remind you again that Bill Gates once said, money in trust is not about return. It's about protection against unwarranted claims and efficient distribution of your assets without probate. So this is the main intention of setting up a trust, not because of the 8%, 8.5% or 9%. Okay. Of course, if you use your money, you can invest in other places. Probably you could get higher return as well, but not for trust. So if you, let's make a comparison. If you put in fixed deposit rate in Malaysia, as of July 2023, this one, not up to date yet. So assuming that the highest in this in the website was 2.8% per annum, if you put 30,000 for 12 months, you only get 840 ringgit. Okay. Whereas if you put in the AI Generation Trust, for example, 30,000 for 12 months, every year you'll get 2,550 ringgit. So just compare, you get much more. Of course, the return is a return that you can get more from the compared to your FD. Of course, this is not about the return that you're earning money from it, because to offset the purpose of this is to give you the offset of the inflation. Of course, everyone knows that inflation rate is quite high nowadays. Okay, so this is based on the dividend of 8.5% from AI Generation Trust. Now you can see here, I also show you the payout from AI Generation Trust, 8.5%. So from this trust capital of 800,000, after 1 year, you'll get back 8.5%, which is 68,000. And this was banked into the said loss account. Now, if you put in FD, of course, nowadays there are risks. There are a lot of risks if you put in FD. Right? As you can see in many newspapers today, every day you can see that people lost money from fixed deposit account, from this bank and this bank. Even they come out with the bank, the name of the bank as well, came out in the paper, right? And even professional also lost money while putting money into the bank. So something is not right nowadays. Okay. Now we can also use trust as a retirement planning tool, right? So EPF once mentioned that 600,000 is needed to retire comfortably. Do you think so? Right? It came out in the paper. So let's take a look. Right? I purposely created this chart to give you an idea how much you can get back if you are keeping your money in EPF or fixed deposit, and also compare with trust. Now, for example, if you put 600,000, we use back the same figure, 600,000. If you put 600,000 into fixed deposit, for example, annual return, let's say, assuming it's 3%. It fluctuates depending on the bank. Annual return is only 18,000. Okay, and divide by 12, every month you only get 1,500. 1,500 is actually the minimum wage now today. Okay. Now the same amount of 600,000, if you keep it in the EPF, of course it's much better, right? You could get about 5% or 5.5%. Let's take it as if it's 5% for easy calculation. So your annual return is 30,000. Divided by 12, you get 2,500 per month. Not bad, better than fixed deposit, right? Now the same amount, 600,000, it will not be frozen. So EPF not be frozen, but FD you will be frozen upon demise. So AI Generation Trust, you put 600,000 with an annual dividend of 8.5%, your annual return is 51,000. Divided by 12, you will get 4,250 per month. Okay, not bad. I mean, if you are retired, every month you should be able to survive with this amount, right? Which would you prefer? Of course, from the chart here, very obviously, you can see that it's better to put into the trust fund. Now, also recently, they shows that there's in the Klang Valley, according to the research, how much you need to survive. If you are single with public transport only, you do not own a car, it's 1,009, around 1,009. If you own a car, you need 2,006 single to survive, right? So if you are married, or without children, 4,006. With one child is 5,000, almost 6,000. Senior couple is 3,002, right? So this is just a guide for those who's living in Klang Valley. But if you're staying in smaller town, of course, you don't need to travel so much. You don't need to spend so much in inflation. Okay. Now, effect of inflation on wealth. Now, let's take a look at this. Many people doesn't realize. Now, I take only 8%, but I'm sure now today the inflation rate have increased more than 8%. If you eat a bowl of noodles, you find that they already increased from 8 ringgit to 9 ringgit or sometimes to 10 ringgit. So it's more than 10%. So it's more than 10%. But let's assume that it's 8%. So every 5 years, you look at it, your money, your 1 million cash, if you just keep it in your house, right? Your 1 million will become less and less and less as the year goes by. Why? Because our money becomes smaller and smaller, and on top of that, the things that you're going to buy is going to be more expensive. So the value of your money that you are keeping in with you becomes smaller and smaller. So what do we do? So the rate of return, the return I'm talking about here is the rate of return. For example, even you put in FD or whatever, the rate of return, if your rate of return is equal to the inflation rate, then you find that your purchasing power is maintained. You are not affected by the inflation. Like for example, it's 8%, for example. We use 8% there. So if you put the money in the trust, you get back 8.5%. So your return is almost equal to the inflation rate. If your inflation rate is 8% or 8.5%, then your purchasing power is maintained, right? But if your rate of return is only 3%, but your inflation rate is 8%, that means your purchasing power is less. Your money becomes smaller. Okay. Now, there are a lot of the people, when you put a will or whatever, so you look at the Genting family feud, right? As you see, came out here, Genting founder Lim Kok Tong's granddaughter filed 1.6 billion lawsuit against late mother's executor. Who is the late mother's executor? The mother's executor is the mother's brother or the uncle, right? So this is among the family, they already have a lot of dispute because it was not stated properly in the will, and they were, and as it's mentioned that in the, if you put a will, if you set up a written a will, it can be contested in court. So that's how this thing comes out. Steve Jobs appears, right? Steve Jobs passed away in 2011, but his total wealth was not disclosed to the public as he discreetly planned his estate via trust, right? It's very private. That's why it's called private trust or called a living trust, right? So it says Steve Jobs appeared to have protected his estate with living trust. Okay. It's also believed that this is how Steve Jobs protect his wealth from 40% of inheritance tax in US. So US, the inheritance tax is 40%. Okay. So there are a lot of advantages setting up a trust compared to a will. Of course, in Asia, of course, you have heard of this Anita Mui, right? Anita Mui set up a trust and asked the trustee to disperse 70,000 Hong Kong dollar monthly to her mother. Why? Because the mother is a habit gambler, right? So, and then also the Joyce Cheng, this is Lydia Sam's daughter. At the time, before she passed on, her daughter was only very young, 21 years old or so. So she set up a trust to prevent her daughter from being cheated by people. So, and said that until she reaches the age of 35, right, then only she can inherit all her inheritance or her money, right? But by keeping in the trust and ask the trustee to disperse only 20,000 Hong Kong dollar as a out-of-pocket living expenses for her until she reached the age of 35. And of course, we have our late Mr. Tan Kai He, the Hi-O founder. He used 15% of Hi-O Berhad share to set up charity trust with trust company. And the yearly dividend return will use for charity purposes, right? So in a trust, you can create and give yearly dividend for charity and so on. And for the next 20 years, 30 years, you can do it, right? So whereas in the will, you have to be dispersed one lump sum, and then you have to don't know what to do with the money at that point of time. And of course, this is quite a recent one. This under Coco Lee's husband, Bruce, right? So it was stated also in the newspaper that Bruce will not be receiving anything from Coco's will due to some conflict, personal affair. But rumors also say that this Canadian businessman attempt to overturn that. He can contest her will, looking for lawyer to contest her will. Even if Coco put there, no, my husband will not receive anything from my inheritance, but he as the husband can engage a lawyer to contest her will. Right? This is the how will can be overturned. If you have engaged you have money to engage a good lawyer, you can do that. Okay, but in a trust, you can't, right? Because you bypass the court probate. You bypass the court probate, and it will go direct from the trustee. You will pay direct to the beneficiary. Now, Warren Buffett says the perfect inheritance is enough money so that they feel they can do anything, but not so much that they could do nothing, right? That's why it's very smart talk. So if you have a will, you will receive all the money, but you do not know what to do with the money, right? It will be cheated or will be spent. It will be finished within a short period of time, right? Whereas in a trust, you can plan it in such a way that you can disperse the amount annually or monthly to the surviving beneficiaries. Now, how do I set up a living trust? If you'd like to set up a cash trust or have additional questions about your unique situation, please do not hesitate to contact our qualified trust advisor who brought you here, right? All our trust advisors in DDG have gone through a training course, and they are qualified and they know how to help you to set up a living trust. Okay. So last but not least, this is a very nice quotation. Put not your trust in money, but put your money in trust. It's by Oliver Denwell Holmes Sr. Okay. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and have a nice day. Thank you and goodbye.